Hey y'all, welcome to Cross Politic 101 with Gabriel Wrench. Hope your Monday is going well. I'm excited to have Pastor James Baird on. He wrote a book called King of Kings. Let me bring that up here real quick on this side. Oh, we like this side better on the camera. King of Kings. You know, should government promote a specific religion? That's where we're going to go today with Pastor James Baird. Pastor James Baird is pastor of Christian education at Covenant Church of Naples, PCA. PCA, brother! I like it. He's a graduate of Covenant College, Westminster Theological Seminary, and Union School of Theology. He previously served at Westminster Theological Seminary and Ligonier Ministries. He and his wife, Georgia, live in Naples, Florida, with their 3 sons. James is the author of King of Kings, the book I just showed you, a reform guide to Christian government. Pastor James, thank you so much for coming on Cross Politic.
Thanks for having me on. Can't wait.
Yeah, so, you know, what's interesting about just your intro to this book, I felt like you were talking about me in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
You know, I grew up in the Presbyterian Church, PCA. I was PCA Church in Texas, New Mexico, Oregon, and then just left PCA because I moved to Colorado. There's no PCA church there. And then I moved to Idaho, Moscow, Idaho, where Pastor Doug is, and there's no PCA church here. So started going CREC. But when I got here in 2002, you know, growing up in the PCA, my dad catechized me, Westminster Confession, small, and you know, I was my dad actually knew David Chilton, you know, the whole Tyler. We actually lived in Tyler, Texas for a little bit, if you know the old Tyler story and everything. So we're kind of in the Reformed world all the way. My dad actually, Rushdoony tutored my dad for a little bit when he's living in California. So we kind of go, my dad goes back to California. But as related to this topic, I remember I started Cross Politic in 2016 with Pastor Toby and Knox, and we started it because we saw a huge, you know, to education gap really on how to think and apply the Bible to politics. That's the deficit I had. And if I had that deficit, I just assumed that, you know, probably a lot of my generation had that same deficit.
Yep.
So just kind of, you know, but even then, you know, in 2016, I was like, you know, yeah, Jesus is Lord over everything.
Mm-hmm.
And that you know, I believed it. I signed off to it. And then you start realizing, man, I haven't worked this into the corners at all.
Yeah.
And and now it sounds like that's kind of what you were talking about yourself in this whole introduction, where before, it sounds like somewhere around 2023, before 2023, you're probably like me in some sense, where you kind of maybe signed off to Jesus as Lord over everything. But I'd love to actually start here, because I think a lot of our listeners, I think a lot of the American church is here. We say Jesus is Lord, we you know, sign off to it, but then we actually haven't really worked that out all the way to the corners like we should. And so talk to me about maybe your story and how you grew to these convictions.
I felt this exact same way. I mean, I knew all the different kind of options on the table. So you had theonomy, you had neo-Calvinism, Kuyperianism, something like that. You had R2K, radical two kingdoms. And man, they just didn't all sit well with me. I mean, theonomy, I was a Van Tillian. Love Van Til.
Oh, yeah.
So definitely knew Scripture is authoritative in every part of life. So theonomy, at least when I was younger, I was attracted to that, right? It actually said the Bible matters for this and speaks to it. But man, then I started thinking about it, and like general equity and how do you actually do it? And, you know, it just didn't feel like a live option at all. And I couldn't, there were some sections in the tradition that I just couldn't quite find fit with it.
Yeah.
Neo-Calvinism struggled with that. You know, if we're an exilic people, does that mean like Christians can't work in government? Or if they do work in government, they have to like not be very Christian and like the laws? I couldn't make sense of it. I couldn't make sense of it. I kind of gave up on it, to be honest. It's like, I don't know what to do with this. I love apologetics, love theology. I'll just do that stuff.
Yeah.
But man, 2020 happens.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it starts getting existential.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you realize that if Christians don't have a good grasp of what it means to have a political theology, your theology speaks to your politics.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're gonna lose big time. It's
Yeah.
gonna go sour. That
Yeah.
salt and light is not out there.
Yeah.
So then when I started to become a pastor, and I thought I've really got to work through this because I can't shepherd my people when they come to me with these questions if I don't even know like the model that I should have in my head for how this works. So it was real simple. I just went back to Calvin and Hodge and Turretin, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden I found a model for thinking about politics that was not only biblical and made sense, but it was super practical too.
Mm.
And I realized that the Reformed tradition had written all this stuff, not just on the doctrine of Scripture, not just on justification, not
Right.
just on covenant
Right.
theology. I mean, thousands and thousands of pages on politics.
Yeah.
There's a whole Protestant political tradition. There's nothing new under the sun.
Well, and Calvin's Institutes just starts off addressing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what's the two parts of Calvin's Institutes. Everyone skips in seminary.
Seminary. Same thing.
Same thing. Right,
Yeah.
what do we skip? We skip the letter that opens the book.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is to the King of France, right?
Yeah.
And we skip book 4, which is on the civil magistrate, right?
Is that did you guys really skip book 4?
Well, you read it, but
you don't really talk about it or flesh it out or anything. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. It's sort of like, oh, that's weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not really.
You
don't talk about it much.
Yeah. And then so what about 2020 that kind of the rubber met the road, it sounds like in 2020. What specifically, like in your neck of the woods, because you were in Florida then? Were you in Florida then or Philadelphia?
Yeah, then I moved to Florida. I moved to Florida before everyone else was moving here. I moved before March of 2020.
Yeah.
So yeah, we were down here. Thank goodness. DeSantis did an awesome job.
Yeah.
But what started to happen was you have the COVID policies. You see different pastors trying to figure out what to do with Romans 13.
Yeah.
Some people saying this is absolute obedience to the magistrate.
Mm-hmm.
Other people trying to articulate civil disobedience. So that gets you thinking.
Yeah.
Like, hey, this is the Bible passage. How do we?
Apply this. Yeah.
Right. But around the same time, you also get. That's a big one.
Yeah.
I had a second point. I'm trying to remember what it was.
So
COVID was the big one.
Yeah.
COVID's a big one.
Okay. So 2020, COVID obviously hit. I mean, I can't tell you. Yeah. I mean, you're probably familiar. You probably have the same stories in your church and your work in Florida and everything. But just in one sense, how grateful I am for that COVID happened, because it really did wake up a lot of people.
Yep.
And very different in all sorts of ways. But it also, I'd say the other thing it did, people started moving. At least the first time in, maybe this is not a full, total fair statement, but the first time in my lifetime where I saw, in general, people were moving because of they wanted to be in a Christian community, they wanted to be in a better community, they're moving because I want to be and identify with these people, or I want to go to a conservative state, or I want to go. And as before, people would move for jobs, job growth in California. We're going kind of following the job kind of thing. But this is the first time where people started moving because of COVID kind of just broke them and said, I need to be in a good community where I'm protected when the government does something crazy like this.
Yep.
So huge blessing. And then I would say, that also, I remember when COVID hit and our mayor shut down town in March 2020, we started doing a show every day because we were like, we saw churches starting to shut down. We had been doing a show maybe twice a week then. But then the churches started shutting down. They started shutting down businesses, everything. And we're like, oh my goodness, we should just do it. This is so important. There's such a crazy happening. We need to do a show every day. And so it'd be interesting to go back and listen to our shows from, let's say, March to June, because we were growing in this, because all of a sudden now health is a public problem, and how do we sort through that? And churches are shut down. The mayor's shutting down your own town and your own government and your own company and your way of providing, trying to provide for your family, and so the need to really understand scriptures and apply it practically to that moment was just so heightened.
Yeah, and no one wants to do that by themselves, right?
Mhm.
You don't want to just have to open up your passage. You want to do it with your tradition. You want,
Mhm.
like, I don't know, 100 smart guys
Yeah, yeah,
who have been thinking about this over 1,000 years,
yeah,
helping you to reason with those passages.
yeah.
I remember the second thing. So
Good. Get
obviously
into
it's
it.
COVID. It's COVID. The other one is that's really when you start having all the Christian nationalism debates
Yeah.
happening,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
Those books start coming out.
yeah.
And I thought, man, this stuff seems weird. I don't know what to do with it. I got people asking me questions. Like, I want to
Mhm.
read the tradition for myself. I want
Yeah.
to know. So what I did is I didn't read any of the new literature. I just went and read the tradition.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that's what ultimately helped cement
Okay.
how I was thinking about things.
All right. So basically, you're saying by the time 2023
Yep,
came, this thought process, the wet cement started hardening with
that's
you,
right.
and then just for time stamp for our conversation, when did this book come out?
This book came out October 1st, and I wrote it over a weekend last Thanksgiving.
Oh, really? And so
Yeah,
it just came out this October 1st.
this October 1st. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So your heart was burning during
Yes,
Thanksgiving, man. You had to get it all
that's
out.
right. I
Okay.
had to. I remember doing a 9-hour drive, and the whole time I'm thinking, "I've gotta share this with pastors."
Yeah.
I just mapped it out in my head, stayed
Yeah.
up late, and slammed out a draft.
And did it. Okay. So in chapter 3, I think this is where you kind of get to your real thesis,
Mhm.
your big thesis
Yep.
here. You make the claim government must promote Christianity as the only true religion.
Yep.
So, and that's the basic thesis for your book.
Mhm.
Why? Um, it's such a funny claim in one sense, where it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
now I look at this, I'm like, of course,
Yeah.
you know, like we gotta
Yep.
argue for this now,
Yep.
as Christians. But
Yep.
I guess two questions here. One is, back up that claim for me,
Yep.
and then, why are we in this situation where we even need to, you know, um,
Mm.
right, make that
I
claim
I
or write this book in some sense, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So I have a lot of ways that I back it up. I mean, you can look at American history.
Hmm.
Like, this is a super American idea.
And
George
we'll get
Washington.
more into that. Yep. Hmm.
We can get more into that. But the core piece really is my argument, and it's simple in 3 steps. First premise is government must promote the public good.
Yep.
That's why God made it. Romans 13:4. This is the Westminster Confession 23, section 1. Second premise is Christianity as the only true religion, right? So the only true one,
Yeah.
Christianity is an essential part of the public good.
Yeah. And
And you
so
see that.
the ramifications there, if you're promoting a lie,
Mhm.
if you're a Christian public servant
Yep.
and you're promoting, secularism, some sort of form
Mhm.
of neutrality, if you're promoting you're not allowed, your conscience not allow you biblically are not allowed to promote a lie, which is again goes back to why you need to promote the only true religion.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, how to prove that is simple. Who's Christianity not good for? Who's the gospel not good for?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? What person
That's
in God's
Vantillion.
law? Yeah, yeah, yeah. There you go. See it coming out. Yeah, it makes sense if you're Van Tillian,
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just the most basic Christian thing you could believe. It's why we do missions.
Hmm.
Same idea.
Yeah. And so, all right, to my second question then, why did your book need to be written?
Mm, yeah. It really starts if you look in 1947 is kind of the turning point with the Supreme Court, at least legally, where this comes out.
Okay.
What happens is the Supreme Court starts to reason that the government is not competent to deal with any like religious questions. So what that and it also starts going in the direction of saying that the First Amendment, Congress shall make no law respecting establishment of religion, means you can't have prayer in school, public
Mhm.
schools.
Yep.
You can't have prayer in public schools. You can't have Bible reading in public schools. That really then gets cemented in the 1960s.
Mhm.
And eventually Christians just start to adopt this idea that, yeah, that's what the separation of church and state means in the First Amendment. And then they
Yeah.
start to rationalize it by saying, well, this actually gives us more opportunities to keep the church pure because the government is not meddling in
Yeah.
religion at all.
Yeah.
And then it just becomes a common thought, it's a thing you can assume with anyone that you don't want religion and politics to get too mixed up.
It's as you're pointing that rationalization, that movement of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of the things I've been thinking about recently is every movement, every church, every organization, every society all has a direction they're going.
Mm-hmm.
And you this is where especially pastors need to be really intuitive in our world and culture. Your movement can start off good and it has a direction, and along the way something can happen and go south.
Yep.
You know, your city, America, we're in America, you know, happy birthday 1776, and then the direction that we've been going for, you know, 250 years now, plus years, or it'd be 250, and and even in those movements, you can have sin and problems and challenges, and you still be going in a healthy direction. And your church, your local church, same thing. It's like, okay, what is happening in my church? Where is my church going? It's you know, it seems to me that part of the challenge in the church, or part of the inability in the church, is to identify, you know, direction. What's happening? Where are you going? Where's your people going? Where, you know, because I mean, you can apply this to individual lives. You know, it's like, you know, kids 13 years old and doesn't get out of bed early and doesn't, you know, work hard during the day or whatever. It's like, okay, that kid's not going to get direction now. Thank God that you know, again, movements can have sin and you still be going the right direction, or correct course over time. But it seems like the church needs to do a lot better about understanding the times, understanding where your people are at, and preaching and discipling with that instinct and knowledge and wisdom in mind. You know what I'm saying?
I think that's exactly right. And what you described there is a perfect way to describe how the civil rulers promote true religion. You see, you're tuning in there to what's called prudence. You're sensitive to what's going on in the culture, what's going on with the people, kind of what they need to do next to go the right direction. And obviously, you're not going to make the culture perfect overnight. You can't enforce the full weight of the law on people with the death penalty or something. It would be the opposite of the public good. But what the magistrate must do, what the civil rulers must do, is look at where things are and say, what wise thing can I do right now to make it easier for the people to be godly and harder for them to be sinful?
Yeah.
That's ultimately what it means.
And, you know, that's interesting. You know, I mean, this is getting a little off on where we want to go with this conversation, but like, let's go. Let's have a good conversation, fun conversation. You know, I would be in the theonomist category, but you know, kind of the Westminster general equity category of a theonomist. And you know, if I was president for a day or governor for a day in Idaho, you know, all of a sudden I wouldn't jump to, you know, this or that. You know, it's like you really gotta have wisdom as a Christian leader in politics to think through, okay, how can I, you know, you do this with your kids. You do this with, you know, friends around you who are struggling with sin. You meet them where they're at, where they need to be met, and not where they should be. You know, that's how God works with us. And in the same way with theonomy, it's like I would love God's law to be honored throughout society, and I would love God's law to be the law of our land. And I think every Christian should be praying for that and striving for that. You know, I would, you know, we have this debate with our abolition brothers all the time because we'd be
same question.
Because we'd be smash mouth incrementalist. Although I would sign an abolition bill if I had it on my desk as a governor. Now the one and I'd have all sorts of concerns, not with so much the bill, but how to you know, push this new bill out and what it means to my state of Idaho, let's say over the next 5 years, 10 years, because one of my concerns with abolition is that they can only see certain things well in this debate, and other things I think they're missing. Like, for example, let's say if I sign an abolition bill, one of the things I would like in the bill is like, okay, this is we're on a 5-year or 10-year process before we fully enforce the weight of this law.
Mhm.
which includes the death penalty in it.
Mhm.
So I wouldn't want the death penalty immediately, because the same judges that
Mhm.
oversaw the death of babies, how are they going to oversee the righteous, verdict of a man or a mother who killed her baby, who murdered her baby? And so the judges have blood on their hands with abortion. All of a sudden, they're going to see things rightly with this judicial case and rule on it well. And so I think, kind of thinking through God's law and how we want to bring it out and roll it out to society, if I was governor for a day, is, we need mature Christians thinking, and mature way of kind of thinking about what does it look like for Christians to regain the center and regain our politics too. Go ahead.
That's exactly right. Well, because it's a political question, and the political process is all about looking at what's possible. It's all about looking at secondary and tertiary effects. It's all about looking at the coalition that could support it over a long period of time, not just get it passed, get it implemented. And so, yeah, I'm not an abortion abolitionist, even though I think that in principle, it's just, right? Basically,
It's God's law.
It's God's law,
Yeah.
right? It's in principle just. That doesn't mean it's prudent, right? And that goes with any of the things we're talking about, especially the first table, right? So I'm for enforcing the first table. The Westminster Larger Catechism is for this. Very Presbyterian.
Yeah.
Well, but then you have questions. How? Does that mean, let's say, if anyone doesn't go to church on Sunday, they get thrown in prison? Well, that's probably not prudent. Maybe a prudent one would be let different counties shut down businesses on Sunday. That's another way to, so you got to be smart about how you do it, because the point isn't just to say you signed the bill.
Yeah.
The point as a civil ruler is to help the people be godly.
Yeah.
Those are two different things.
Yeah, and I know this is not a conversation over theology, but it's a fun conversation anyways. I know if, let's say, Sabbath laws became a thing again in Gabe's state of Idaho.
Yeah.
One of the things is Doug's dad, Jim Wilson, who I think it was I know, well, let me just say, Doug has said this, that, one of the things that would be he would like to see with Sabbath laws is, maybe what happens is there's 6 restaurants in town, and 4 of them shut down and 2 stay open on Sunday, because you got travelers coming through, and you got people who need food coming through, and it's a mercy ministry,
Exactly.
And then you got 1 hotel stays open while the other 3 shut down or whatever, so you're honoring the Sabbath while also being able to take care of travelers coming through town, stuff like that. And those are kind of examples where it's like, we it's like we need to think through these things in way more, in a less wooden way, in a way more way that it's like, okay, it's honoring God and also taking care of, in some sense, a mercy ministry.
Well, and here's another example which I think would be great is you obviously, if you tried to do a blasphemy law right now, like, the nation would totally rebel and it would be totally unenforceable, right? But let's say the Senate is not allowed to curse, or else they get fined.
Yeah.
They're not allowed to take God's name in vain, or they get fined.
Yeah.
Right? That sounds like a great law.
Yeah.
Right? So you find ways to, and what are you doing there? You're forcing your leaders to set a positive example to influence the people. Right? So the point is, prudence is important, and politics takes a lot of careful consideration and deliberation.
And I would just say, I have a hard time trusting our current generation of pastors and leaders who haven't been thinking through this very well at all. And even, hearing, I'm not going to go there, but I have a hard time kind of trusting the previous leadership generation, because it's like the guys that I've read on this are guys I trust. It's like I trust my pastor Doug. I trust, your book, King of Kings. There's other guys who've written. There's another book coming out by Levi, by Pastor Levi. I think he's out of Minnesota. I haven't actually read it. It's on my desk actually right now. So there's some recent guys who are really starting to try to think through this, but the previous generation of pastors were so passive about, and again, this is why cross politics started. It's like no one was trying to apply the Bible to politics, which meant was everyone was getting their discipleship from the government. And this goes back to your 1947 trajectory here. It's like, well, by the time, the 70s rolled around, or in the 80s, it's like, well, prayer wasn't even allowed in school anymore. And the only thing that you could do is go see you at the poll once a year. and Christians, I remember Christians thought we were winning when we had "See You at the Pole." I'm like,
Mhm.
we just got chased out the last 100 years, and we think winning is praying once a year on the lawn of
Yep.
a school. Let's go back to your argument. So you present the argument: government
Yep.
must promote Christianity as the only true religion.
Yep.
And then you the next chapter you actually follow up with evidence.
Mm-hmm.
So you present the argument, and then you're like, okay, let's get into some evidence. Walk me through a couple pieces of evidence for your argument here.
So in the background of the argument is the fact that today most pastors think you cannot appeal to Old Testament kings of Israel to prove that the government must promote true religion because Israel was in this special covenant with the Lord. The interesting thing about that is it assumes that the guys who did use those Israelite kings as examples, like the Westminster Divines that use them as proof texts
Yeah.
in the Westminster Confession,
Yeah.
it's assuming they didn't understand covenant theology,
Mm-hmm.
which is pretty crazy because where did covenant theology come from?
Is that an argument?
Oh, yeah.
To
Oh, sure.
they're
Yes.
saying the Westminster Divines guys?
Well, it's an assumed part of it, right?
Yeah.
Right? Because what they say is, well, covenant theology says Israel was special, so we can't learn how to do government from them because they were special and in a special covenant with the Lord.
Yeah.
But the same guys who said we should follow their example also believed in covenant theology.
Yeah.
So what is implied in that is we understand covenant theology better than the Westminster Divines.
You know, one of the things that one of the arguments scriptures gives us is kind of a how much more argument. If Israel was commanded to do this, how much more? This is Hebrews chapter 11 ends with a how much more.
Yep.
Exactly. And so if God wanted us to obey the Sabbath and take a day off in the Old Testament, how much more important it is now that Jesus died on the cross and rose again from the dead.
Yep.
And that's
so
crazy.
If all the kings of the world from Psalm 2 are supposed to serve the Lord with fear and kiss the Son, when the Son was only the type and shadow of the nation of Israel, how much more that the true Son of God has come down and been revealed as the Lord Jesus Christ are all the kings of the world supposed to serve the Lord in fear and kiss the Son?
That's right. Amen. Right? That's right.
So I'm trying to combat this idea that covenant theology means the government shouldn't promote true religion. And I do that by going through all the kings of Israel, which is typical, and saying, see, David, Hezekiah, Josiah, they're promoting true religion.
Okay.
But it's not just them. It is also all the Gentile kings, too. Not all of them, but at these key moments, we see the king of Nineveh, we see Nebuchadnezzar, we see Darius, we see Cyrus the Great.
That's right.
Almost in fulfillment of Psalm 2, sending out official decrees. So it's not just personally confessing Jesus as Lord. It's in their official acts as king, multiple times passing laws that sound like Leviticus and promoting true religion. So this is a duty not only for the kings of Israel, it's definitely a duty for them, but it's also a duty for all kings. Why? Because the Lord gave them their authority and they're accountable to him.
That's right. Now, I thought this was interesting. So you go through the argument, and then you go through the evidence, and then I'm going to skip a couple chapters here, but then we get to chapter 6, the American way.
Yep.
Walk me through what you're trying to communicate in chapter 6.
My basic idea is that the government promoting true religion is not anti-American. Because I think a lot of people would think that, oh, well, America's all for freedom of religion. How can, and the separation of church and state, right? So what I go through and show is, first of all, the First Amendment does not restrict the government from promoting true religion. All that the First Amendment does is say that Congress cannot set up a national church and force all the states to be one denomination. That's all that it means. It doesn't mean that the president can't call a national day of Thanksgiving and fasting. They did that all the time.
Which they did.
Doesn't mean there can't be all of these congressional statements about how the people should be turning to the Lord Jesus Christ as the only way to be saved. Right? You can do that. It also doesn't mean that the states can't set up
Yeah.
their own state churches,
Yep.
established churches. They're allowed to do that. It's Congress who can't do it. The states
That's
can.
right. Yep.
And so it turns out the First Amendment has a very particular meaning. The only point of the Establishment Clause in the First Amendment is to say we Protestants aren't going to fight with each other, and we're going to tolerate the few Catholics and Jews who are here.
Yeah.
That's the point. And you can see that from a Supreme Court justice like Joseph Story, who was appointed by James Madison in his commentary on the First Amendment. He says the point is to not favor one Protestant sect over another at
Right.
the federal level.
Right.
That's the point.
You know, when the Constitution was ratified, 1789, 9 out of the 13 colonies had established religions.
In one way or another, yeah.
Yeah, one way or another, right? You know, Massachusetts, I think, was Congregationalists.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think somewhere was one was Presbyterian, whatever. But they all signed that, ratified the Constitution.
Yep.
And you're absolutely right. It's amazing the reading comprehension problem we have in America when it comes to our Constitution. It's like Congress shall make no law, and then they go and try to make more laws.
That's right.
And the same thing happens to the Second Amendment.
I mean,
you know,
think about how crazy this is, right?
Yep.
It says Congress shall make no law.
Yep.
Okay. Therefore, you can't pray in school.
Yep. That's right.
What does praying in school have to do with Congress passing a law?
Yeah.
It makes zero sense.
And the same thing happens in the Second Amendment. Like, you know, you have a right to bear arms, and then they put all these restrictions on bearing arms.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, no, Congress, you can't do anything. Now the states can do whatever, like you point out, the states can do whatever they want regarding religions. Like they could have the state of Idaho could be Presbyterian, and the state of, you know, Washington could be Baptist, and you know, it's like that was totally legit, which is
totally fine.
Which is why the evidence of 9 out of 13 colonies is so important, because you know, they knew what the Constitution meant, and they weren't contradicting themselves when they ratified the Constitution, knowing they had a state religion. It's crazy. All right, so the American way, basically, you're arguing there that like this biblical reasoning that you're putting forward is consistent with also just the way the Americans thought about this.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, and so why do you think that this argument that you're putting forward in the book, that, you know, government, not only is the government, you know, should promote good Christian religion because it's the one true religion, but is required to, like it's commanded to. God has called public servants, right? But why is this argument? What does it have to do with freedom? Right? Because once we start talking about the Christian religion is going to rule the day, we're also going to talk about restrictions in that. So why is this argument consistent with freedom?
Yeah, it's a great question. That's why it's that next chapter, because it raises this question of, okay, well, does that mean there's just going to be absolute tyranny, and all the Baptists should be worried because we'll force them to baptize their kids? That's the classic one I hear.
Yeah.
But you can tell I must give a good answer because a Baptist publisher published it.
And you got to buy the book to to read that answer.
That's right. So basically, we need to rehabilitate how we think about religious liberty, especially in America, because when you go back to the period of the founding, liberty, freedom, these words did not mean a total lack of constraint. They're not libertarian in that sense. In fact, what freedom meant was the presence of the right constraints. Freedom meant, like, it was a very biblical and Christian idea. It's freedom like Augustine or Paul would think about it. Freedom in Christ means that you're a slave to him, right? It means that you've been set free from evil things and you have been enslaved to good things. It means the freedom to operate the way God designed you to operate. So you have reasoning all across the founding generation where they would say things like, we need to take public funds and have Protestant teachers of religion and morality to teach all the kids, because if they aren't Protestant, they'll lose their freedom.
Right.
What is it?
Right.
What's going on there? Oh, it's because it's a Christian. It's an idea of ordered liberty, right?
Yeah. Right.
It's also important to understand the idea of toleration. So the idea of toleration is more or less permitting what you cannot prevent. So, for example, by the time you get to the founding, you had broad toleration for the few Catholics that were here and for the few Jews that were here.
Mhm.
The idea was that this is a Protestant country. It's going to have Protestant laws. As long as you obey those laws, we will allow you to be here. We're tolerating you.
Yep.
We are not acknowledging you. We're not saying, well, who knows? Maybe Catholicism's right. Maybe Protestantism's right. Who really knows? No, no, no. We're saying Protestantism is
Mhm.
true. That's how this state is going to be run, depending on which state you're in. But we'll allow you to be here,
Mhm.
um, and that is something the Reformed tradition, the Protestant tradition, even going all the way back to Thomas Aquinas, they said this is necessary because there'll
Uh-huh.
be times when there's things you can't prevent. You must kind of guard the populace from being too unduly influenced by them. But you have to guide things so that you have some forbearance for wickedness when you're not able to prevent it.
Mhm. So, I want to get to to be honest here, I didn't get to the last couple chapters, so this is where I really don't know your argument.
Yeah.
Obviously, I got the flow of it.
Those are the best
Uh,
ones, man.
yeah. I'm sure they are. And I want to talk about an end here on the way of exile. But before I get there,
Mm,
your last chapter is titled "The Way of Exile."
mhm.
But before I get there, I got to read this ad here. You listen across politics because you care about seeing Christ's lordship over every area of life, including the civil realm. Hey, we're talking about that right now. But establishing righteous laws and just society requires resources. That's where Dominion Wealth Strategist comes in. They're not just here to help you survive in a broken system. They're here to help you reform it. Dominion Wealth's mission is to equip Christians with financial strategies that align with biblical principles, so that that Christian wealth can be built, protected, and used in furthering the kingdom of God. Budgeting, saving, debt management, insurance, legacy planning, and more. Dominion Wealth is about giving Christians the tools to take Dominion mandate seriously. The push to establish righteous laws doesn't just need voices, it requires money, resources. That's right, man. Oh, man, he's talking to me now. Businesses and families committed to active multi-generational faithfulness. And the empowering of individuals is like you to give generously from a position of security and strength. Too many people are trying to pour from an empty cup, but Dominion will ensure yours runneth over. I see that. Christ will reign, and every knee will bow. Let's prepare for the future together and build one of the means to make it happen. Book your free consultation at reform.money today. Reform.money. You can't beat that website URL. Reform.money. Love those guys, Justin Johnson, Josiah. Check them out. They're good friends. Not only are they corporate partners, but they're good friends of what we do. So make sure you check out Dominion Wealth and what they're doing, reform.money. So I want to end here in this discussion, James, because at least how this title comes off to me. This is just my
Mhm.
first impression from not even reading the chapter.
Mhm.
When I hear a lot of Christians start talking about the way of exile,
Mhm.
it's like, and you probably aren't even arguing this. I'm just saying this when I read the chapter. Is that they're kind of saying like this is just the way of the Christian life. Like
Mhm.
we're always going to be in exile, and coming out, going back in, coming out. You know, the way of the cross. You know, you hear this kind of stuff, and it's almost like a defeatist kind
Mhm.
of
Mhm.
theology or vision
Mhm.
of it's just and of course we all know all those who live a godly life will be persecuted in Christ. I mean, I'm not trying to also at the same time trying to
Mhm.
push some of that idea out of us,
Mhm.
but so I'm starting with a negative way of framing this, but you might not even be talking about what I'm framing. Talk to me
No,
about the way of exile and what you're trying to get at in that chapter.
so I'll admit this is my judo chapter. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Here's
Whoa.
what happens. Yeah,
Yeah.
at the after you present all of your arguments, I know this from personal experience. After you present all of your arguments, the last resort is we can't disprove you, but we can deflate how excited you are.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, you can't be too excited about this because don't forget,
Mm-hmm.
this world's not our home. We're exiles. We're
Yeah.
citizens of heaven.
Okay. So I
You
did take the title right then.
you did.
Yeah.
And so this is me kind of responding to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
The response kind of easy. Okay. What did the Israelites do in exile?
They had
What
babies.
examples do we
They
have?
had babies.
They had a lot of babies,
Yep.
right? They took care of their trees and built houses and stuff. But we have figures like that are very political. who are our primary figures in the exile? Well, you have Esther, right?
Yep.
Very political. You have Daniel. You have Rashak, Meshach, and Abednego, right?
Mm-hmm.
All counselors to the king. At the end, you get a really political figure. You get Nehemiah,
Mm-hmm.
okay?
Mm-hmm.
And what you see is when the Israelites are faithful in exile, they are fulfilling a political office as counselors to the king.
Yep.
And the end result of all of their work is that the promotion of true religion.
Yeah, that's right.
That's what Darius does, right?
Yep.
That's what Artaxerxes does.
And they convince the king,
They
the
convince
pagan king.
That's what Nehemiah does.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
With Cyrus the Great. So I would say, yeah, great. We're in exile. Let's get busy.
Yeah.
Let's get busy. We're in exile. Let's get busy. The other thing that I say is, hey, listen, if the shape of the Christian life is the cross,
Mm-hmm.
then and suffering is a key part. And if you're following Jesus, you must not seek to exalt yourself. You must seek to lower yourself. Well, there's no better way to suffer today than to advocate for the government promoting true religion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great way to do it.
You know,
so even if we grant the premise, it actually makes our point even stronger.
Yeah. And it's like, and it's funny because in some sense, you're pointing out, to your point, is that whether you're in exile or whether you are free in a Christian nation, the call is, God's command is still the same.
That's right.
And even to the details, was it Ezekiel or Jeremiah where the prophet had talked about, yeah, we're in a bad spot, and then he says, do good to your city, have babies, raise, it was like, work hard, build your own vineyard, that kind of thing.
That's right.
And in a lot of the sense, that same command still applies to a free man in a free country.
Well, that's the point of the command.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, hey, you're going to go into exile. What should you do? Seek the welfare of the city. Well, here's the first thing. A lot of times people say we're in exile as a reason not to do politics, when the very command of how you ought to operate in exile is seek the welfare of the city, which is like the best definition of politics I've ever heard.
Yeah, right, right.
So it actually it reinforces that idea.
Yeah.
That would have been true even if they were in Jerusalem.
All right, Pastor James, where do you want people to first place you'd like to send people to buy this book?
Well, if you want the really nice hardback,
which is what I have. Yeah, it's really nice.
You got to go to founders.org.
Okay.
But on Amazon, they got Audible, Kindle, paperback.
Okay.
But go to founders.org and use the code KINGS for 10% off.
Ooh, okay. King of Kings, a reform guide to Christian government. Go to founders.org, put in the discount code KINGS for 10% off of the book. Definitely a nice bite-sized summary of some Christian doctrine on God and government, why our government should promote true religion. Really good. Pastor James, thank you so much for coming on Cross Politic Man.
Thanks for having me on. It's been great.
All right. Lord bless you, brother. Oh, well, guys, thank you for joining this interview with Pastor James, King of Kings, Reform Guide to Christian Government. Check it out. Go to founders.org, type in Kings for a little discount there, 10% off, and check it out. It's very good, nice, concise. I mean, it's it's probably a 100-page book on this doctrine. So check it out, founders.org, and until next Monday, take care.